while I was resting. Welcome to the last episode in Series 1 of the While I Was Resting podcast. The podcast in which we chat to performers, actors, musicians, writers, people in the kind of creative industry about the jobs they've done between jobs. And I'm very delighted today to say that our guest for the last episode of the series is none other than Mr. Trevor Neal. Trevor, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. So obviously, I always like to start by just asking the guests to tell us a little bit about themselves and what we would know you for.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Trevor, or Trev, out of Trev and Simon, which is probably what I'd be best known for. Trev and Simon being the comedy duo that were on Saturday morning TV, going live and kicking between 1987 and 1997. And thereafter doing bits and pieces and all kinds of stuff. And
which we'll get to later.
We'll get to, and writing scripts and stuff like that. But yeah, that was what we were known for. I think, swing your pants, we don't do duvets.
The classic catchphrases.
Moon monkey, we don't do perms, that kind of stuff. Mainly we don't
Happy
do
days.
things.
Yeah. Great catchphrase. Once you've got a catchphrase, you kind of life. It'll stay with you forever.
We started off with the don't do thing. Started off with we don't do perms, and then we invented dry cleaners. I don't know why we thought a dry cleaning business would be entertaining for kids. I don't know, but we thought it was funny.
Yeah.
A couple of guys, Don and Dougie Draper, who ran the dry cleaners. Not Don Draper from Mad Men. This is a I think maybe they nicked the name.
I think they did,
possibly. But yeah, so we came up with those characters, and it was one of the one of the team, BBC team, who came up with the duvets thing, because we'd been saying we don't do perms for ages.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, we said, oh yeah, we've got these duvets. He said, yeah, well, don't do duvets. And we just said, actually, can we have that one?
Yeah.
And he kindly said, yeah.
It's got a certain poetry about it, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, lovely. So obviously on this podcast, we're not here to talk about Trevor and Simon.
No.
But, although we can,
well,
it's great to interject. I'm sure we will. But about some of the things you've done before and after and in between, and all those kind of things that most performers do just to live.
Yeah, get some money.
Get some money and exist and survive.
Because a lot of performers don't get money from performing.
I know, yeah. I think people think, if you've been on TV, then that's like bank accounts in the Cayman Islands and luxury jets for life.
Yeah, not straight away anyway.
No.
Of course, I'm there now.
Yeah, of course.
It's lovely here in the Cayman Islands.
Yes, we're on a jet right now.
It's gorgeous. But yeah, well, I don't know, I was thinking about this, and because obviously I knew you were going to ask me about jobs I have done, and I actually went back. This is before acting became even a thing, but I had my first proper job in 1977 when I was 14.
Yeah.
And my mum said, and I don't know whether it was just because she thought I should get out of the house or try and stay away from whatever was going on with my punk rock mates, maybe just get out and do something. So she got me a job with a kitchen fitter, and I had to go out and help this guy fit kitchens. And I don't think I did much. I was 14 years old. So
yeah.
I remember every 2 hours he'd just say, "Put kettle on, lad."
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that.
But he wasn't from up north. He was from Southampton. But he just affected this "put kettle on, lad" every time in that kind of strange kind of mock northern accent.
Yeah,
which was kind of odd. And it started to get a little bit irritating, even as a 14-year-old. But that was mainly my job, to put kettle on, and that's all I remember about it, really. Apart from, I think I remember I just secretly started smoking then, and I thought, I'm now 14, a bit naughty, really. And there I was thinking, oh yeah, I'm a kitchen fitter now. I'll have a smoke in the break. And I sat out in the driveway of this house we were doing, sat down with a cup of tea, lit the fag up, and he came out and he went, "No, you're not doing that. I'll tell your mum." And so straight away, that put me in my place.
Did he do that in a mock northern accent?
He probably did.
Southern accent?
Yeah, put that out, lad.
You're not doing that.
Put kettle on, put that out. But no. So that was my first job. That's all I remember about that.
Was that quite short-lived?
I think it was.
Yeah, a lot of those jobs are.
I didn't. It was a weekend thing. I think, and I didn't enjoy it. I wasn't a natural kitchen fitter, I don't think. And then after that, I think my next job was was in 1979. So by that time, I was no longer a punk. I was now like a young mod.
Right, okay.
But I had a job in Debenhams, and at that time they had lots of little shops. They called them shops within shops, or shop-in shops. And the one I worked for was a company called Knobs and Knockers.
You can't make it up, can you?
No, Knobs and Knockers sold doorknobs and door knockers and door furniture and that kind of stuff. And so I had a badge. I used to wear my like two-tone jacket and tie and have my stay press and loafers, and a badge that said Knobs and Knockers, as long as next to my Target badge and my Jam badge, obviously.
Yeah.
And so I'd be behind the counter and I'd take people's orders for door furniture all day.
Yeah.
And then one day, very excitedly, being a young mod behind the counter, big whisper went round, "Oh, the Jam are in, the Jam are." And it was the day I was going to see the Setting Suns tour that night at the what was called the Gaumont Theatre in Southampton then. And it was so exciting. And yeah, Paul Weller, Bruce Fox and Rick Buckler were in Debenhams when I was behind the counter of Knobs and Knockers. And I used to do a blog for Huffington Post, and I've told that story. This story is online if anyone ever wants to go and find my funny old blogs on the Huffington Post. But yeah, there he was. So I said to my boss, "Oh, can I go and see?" And I went round, and there was Bruce Foxton and Rick Buckler standing underneath the escalator with this massive bodyguard. So I got their autographs. Is there no Paul? Oh yeah, no, he's over there buying a birthday card. And because it was Debenhams, you've got Knobs and Knockers right next to that was the birthday card department. So I nipped round there. And there he was. And there isn't a real punchline or an end to this story other than that I just stood there in awe watching him buy a birthday card or whatever it was, thinking I better not disturb him. And then I took my Knobs and Knockers notepad and pen and went up there, "Please, can you sign this, Paul?" Yeah, and he was very nice and he signed it for me, and that was that.
You still got it?
Still got it.
Oh,
and
good.
that night, then we went to see the Jam, and that was the time when they used to open the doors at the end of a gig, and they'd let everyone just file past and meet them.
Oh, great.
So again, I met him twice in one day at the end of the gig.
Yeah.
I had a chat with him. That was the night we had the same shirt on. Because obviously in those days, anything Paul Weller wore, if you were a young mod, you just basically copied
the same,
it.
Yeah.
So I turned up in a shirt. It was like one of those stripy ones that Terry Hall used to wear as well in the specials.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. Yeah.
And I remember saying, "Oh, I met you today actually in the shop." Of course, he didn't remember. He went, "Oh yeah."
Oh, yeah.
And I said, "Yeah, and we've got the same shirt on." And he went, "Oh yeah, what one's that then?" I said, "No, this one." And he went, "Oh yeah." And I was just in awe of him, the fact that he didn't know what shirt he was wearing, because obviously he just put it on. He had hundreds of shirts then. Yeah. For me, that striped shirt, I knew exactly what I was going to wear 10 days beforehand.
Yeah, for him it's just rock and roll.
It was and that was a good thing, But, so that's my Paul Weller Knobs and Knockers story. Really.
Yeah, do you think Paul Weller to this day sort of thinks, I've got a good story about a shop called Knobs and Knockers?
Somehow I don't think he took it in. I think there was other
I'd
stuff
like to think so, yeah.
I think there was other stuff on his mind at that time, I think.
Good name for a band though.
Knobs or duo.
Yeah. We were talking about working men's clubs last week with Sophie.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Knobs and Knockers. Excellent.
With some bumpy music for your delectation. Yeah. That's what they used to call it in working men's clubs. So they did some tempo stuff.
Rumpy
pumpy. Do some rumpy pumpy. Get them dancing.
Excellent. Yeah. Brilliant. Well, Knobs and Knockers and Rumpy Pumpy, that all goes together nicely. And then 1980, I've got it written down in chronological order. I thought I'd put some little notes.
Yeah.
I hope that's all right.
Of course.
It doesn't seem presumptuous. But...
No, it helps. It's good.
So 1980 to 1981. So still, I was still in Southampton. This was where I lived, where I'd grown up, and I got another department store job. This time in the lighting department, which was very, I was going to say it was very dull, actually. It was very bright. Yeah. There I was, just basically standing all day, all Saturday, just in these, amongst all these lamps and lampshades, and it was not very exciting. But then occasionally, everyone used to have to come up past the lighting department to go off to the canteen. And I'd see lots of young people coming by, and I was just... basically barely had a customer in the lighting department on a Saturday. And then suddenly a few, young people come by and you go, hello. And then eventually, I think whether I got headhunted or something, but I was taken downstairs, down to the toy department, which was much more fun. So I was behind the counter with, all those, I've forgotten what they were called now. Were they Britain's plastic animals? Were they Britain's little figures? So basically, all the zoo animals and farm animals, they were all in a glass
they were like
case.
little ones. Yeah, I used to have those as a kid. Yeah,
that's right. And you could get little farmyard figures and the soldiers as well, and knights, all those sort of all lined up. That was really good fun. And then you'd have all the latest toys. So building up to Christmas, and that was a really nice.
What were the big toys back then?
God, what were we talking about? 1980, 81? Do you know? I have no idea. I remember just all the classic stuff.
Things like Operation and...
Yeah, I mean, all the box
Buckaroo
things like
and all
Kaplunk
that kind of
and all those
stuff,
sort of things, they were still going. I think all the 70s ones of my childhood were sort of gone. Then things like Stock Car Smash Ups and Evil Knievel, that had all moved on then. I think.
What about the Atari? Was that just coming in there? The games consoles?
I guess it might have been. I think that would have been out of my
80s,
league probably then, and still probably quite niche.
Yeah.
But so I didn't know. There wasn't. We didn't do electronic games. It was very old school actually. It really was a counter, and then behind the counter, lots of board games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But next to that, or just on the other side of the department, was the record department. And when the guy left there, they put me on that.
Oh, brilliant.
Or when he was away or on a day off at lunchtime, I went onto the record department. And that was just great because you could you sat behind the desk, played any record you want.
Yeah.
And just sat back and had fun. And also I was allowed to order all the records in, and there was like a kind of, I think it was a book of like cheap records that were kind of special offers.
Right.
So I just went through just choosing all the punk ones, all the stuff that I liked, and ordered them all in, and we'd just sit there and play them as they came in. That was really good.
Oh, that'd be great to work there.
Yeah, it was really good. I mean,
it
was just a lot of fun, really. And so my mates would come in, they'd all stand around and tell me what record to put on and things like that. So.
And how old would you be at this point?
So that was 17, 18, up till I was just before I left, because I ended up going to university.
Yeah.
So it's just before I left to go to Manchester, really. It was leading up to them. So, in fact, no, I remember I did celebrate my 18th there because we went to the pub, which was at lunchtime. And everybody bought me a pint, of course. First time I'd had a pint, obviously.
Of course, now you're
so then I had probably, I don't know how many, but quite a lot in the lunchtime. I don't remember much about that afternoon. I think I did sit behind there, pretty much fell asleep with whoever was playing The Damned or whatever it was. There weren't that many punk LPs available in this kind of album I had to order from. So it was basically, I just seem to remember The Damned, that was all it was.
Yeah, those are sole representatives of the punk genre.
Yeah. I wasn't really a big Damned fan, but it was better than, I think Christopher Cross was the other thing at the time. Not really my thing then.
No. Was that Moon? Did he do If You Get Between the Moon and
That's the one.
That's his big hit, isn't it? Yeah.
I think that's it, yeah. So that, and then I went off to university, to Manchester, and that's where I met Simon. At the drama department in Manchester.
And he was already there. He was a year.
He was there, yeah. And then very quickly, I met Kath, who's my wife now.
Yeah.
And saw her in the corridor of the drama department, and saw which tutor group she'd signed up for, and then went rather stalkishly went and signed up for the same one. And then we're still together now. But I met Simon as well, and a whole bunch of people that we're still friends with, which is really nice. Really, it was a really.
And while you were there, what was it that made you and Simon decide to start?
How did we hook up? I think it was it was an interesting course, the drama department course then, because it was quite academic in some ways. It was a bit like an English literature course, but with some practical stuff.
Were you doing things like Stanislavski?
And Brecht, a lot of Brecht, and Chekhov and Strindberg. It was quite heavy play study, really. Oh, Greek drama as well. I don't know whether Simon told you, but it was in the early days before I arrived. Simon was taught Greek drama by Ben Elton.
No, he didn't mention that.
Yeah, it's a weird story, but it's true, because just before we'd arrived, Ben Elton, Rick Mail, and Aid Edmondson, and Lisa Mayer, basically all the young ones.
I knew they were there prior to you guys.
Yeah, so when we arrived,
Ben Elton.
That's partly what excited us and got us into alternative comedy, really, because I think we were both frustrated comic performers, but hadn't found an outlet for that. I think before I got to university, at sixth form, I used to write some comic sketches, and I don't know, I'm with my brother, family parties, we used to perform sketches and stuff like that. But I hadn't really gone any further with it. And then we got cast in a pantomime. It was a community pantomime for the drama department used to do it in their studio, and they'd invite local kids, community kids in. Well, not kids from the community, obviously. Not community kids. I don't know what the difference is. Anyway,
Yeah.
kids from the community would be brought in. Local kids from schools, youth clubs, whatever, would come in, and we'd do our crazy show. And it was crazy. It was like very alternative pantomime. I don't really remember the story or how it worked, but Simon played a grocer who used to pop out of his shop and talk about meat and potato pies and Vimto. That's pretty much as much as I remember of his script. And I was a squirrel on a skateboard, and I don't know why. I can't tell you anything about it. But anyway, during the rehearsals of that, we made each other laugh, and then I made him laugh, but not in a good way, because he fell over at one point on the way to rehearsal and broke his ribs on hitting a concrete bollard. And then during rehearsals, we found that if he laughed, it hurt more. And so I rather cruelly tried to make him laugh as much as I could. And I think that's how we kind of struck up a friendship. There was a whole bunch of us who were all mates doing it, but me and Simon got on. And then we got cast in another show together, and I can't remember the time scale or chronology of this, but we were in I think it was a Molière or Molière kind of comedy thing, two-hander, where we kind of subverted the script and just started doing loads of cheap visual gags. And we sort of, in that period style, where people would kind of do over-the-top bowing and wave their hands as they bowed, I wore some gloves, and we cut the fingers off all the gloves, so that when I waved to do all the fingers flew off. Just stupid gags like that for no reason. But we kind of then got to realise we had a bit of a shared sense of humour for silly nonsense. Yeah. And slightly subverting stuff as well. And I think then over time we just started putting comedy together in. Oh, that's right. There was the Contact Theatre in Manchester used to put on. Some of the students were putting on like alternative cabaret nights in the bar, and so I started off doing stand up. And I say stand up, it was kind of alternative sort of storytelling, I suppose, and observational comedy, I think it was, of sorts, which Simon kind of took the piss out of me for a bit, but it was all right. And Simon was doing similarly alternative stand up, where he did a ventriloquist act with a sock. We took a sock off his own foot and then put it on his hand, but then found it couldn't speak. So he was left there in awkward silence, really. And then anyway, so we decided maybe solo acts wasn't our thing necessarily. And we teamed up with another guy called Phil Dennison. And then we were called all sorts of things then. Billing and Billing's Comical Capers. We called ourselves that so that we didn't argue who had top billing. It was
very good.
That was the
good pun.
Oh, the great joke there. Yeah. And then eventually it just was me and Simon. It whittled down to me and Simon, who wanted to carry it on after university, because I think once it got to the end of university, people realised they had more important things to do with their lives or other ambitions. But Simon and I were the two.
Because obviously Simon was saying, he had to wait for a year.
No, he did.
For you to finish. And that's where a lot of the jobs that he did, he talked about filling in while waiting for you to leave. And so
it was really good of him, actually. It had been a tough year for him because his dad had passed away, and he'd been through a lot. And but he wanted to see it, to try out the comedy thing, and we knew that we wanted to maybe do the Edinburgh Fringe. Yeah. So while I was doing my final year, he got a job in a library, which I think he told you about. And at the end of each week, he'd get his pay. And this is another kindness. He'd bring home a bottle of whiskey with his pay every Friday. And because to have a salary then was something, straight out of university, because we were all either on very small, grants
back then,
or signing on if you'd finished, whatever. So he'd bring home a bottle of whiskey, and I say home. We were in there was a few of us in a student kind of rented house. It was very much like the young ones. At the end of the sofa, actually, there was some wallpaper at the end of our sofa, and if you lifted up the wallpaper, there was just a black hole of damp underneath. It literally went into the wall somewhere, and we never really wanted to know what was behind this.
You wouldn't want to, would you? Just leave it. Don't think about it.
But so then we'd always have a bit of a whiskey on a Friday night.
Oh, nice.
Before going off to going out into Manchester for Friday night out. So that was they were good times, and then eventually we did at the end of that year we did put together this show for Edinburgh and did our sort of first proper show, I guess, which was an hour's show at midday, because we chose not to do the midnight slot, which is what all the alternative comics were doing.
Yeah.
Because we were new and we thought we're not going to try and compete with all the London comics.
Oh.
So we thought, well, let's do a midday one. So we did this little theatre called the Bedlam Theatre. It was a really nice little theatre with old cinema seats, or theatre seats, I guess, and very small. But because it was small and it was midday, it was almost like the first show of the day for a lot of people who just sort of got up or thought they'd do it, to try it out after breakfast, or whatever. And we sold out most of the shows, and we actually broke even. We didn't lose money.
That's remarkable for Edinburgh. Most people lose money. Yeah.
It was unbelievable and really good, because it was some money that Simon had inherited. So to have lost that money would have been, So I owe Simon an awful lot really for setting all that up.
Yeah,
it was very good. And after that, then we went off to London feeling a bit more confident. Yeah, and then carried on from there really.
So I guess you didn't do any extra jobs during university.
Not during university, no, not really. Before we left and went down to London, there was a point. Yes, there was actually. Simon and I were then doing, before we went to London, we were sort of doing the Manchester alternative circuit.
Right.
But there wasn't one really. There was just a very small arts community. And they had a few venues around Manchester, but we ended up basically performing the same act to the same people over and over again, but just in different buildings, really. Which was what was nice about that whole time, is there was a lot of people that were all like-minded and all interested in what was going on politically as well as creatively. But it was a small world. Yeah. And I think that's why we felt we had to leave in the end. Simon was very reluctant to leave Manchester, which I completely understand. I mean, he'd grown up in Salford and he was, it was home. Yeah. But I think, in the end, he could see that if we were going to try and go beyond that community, that arts community, we probably did have to go south and give it a go. But during that time, before we decided, we gave lots of things a go. Because we were performing with that arts group, our word got around a bit. And for some reason, we were invited over with some other mates. I can't remember how it happened, but we went over to Liverpool, where they were having a Christmas... it's very topical, seasonal thing. Another Christmas event where Father Christmas was going to parade through the streets. And I think he was something to one of the big department stores there, and they were going to have a firework display. But they wanted just young performers or people just to be in the street, eating the streets, giving out sweets for Christmas, which was a lovely thing to do. But what we didn't realise was just how desperate things were in Liverpool at that time. And giving out sweets was wild. I mean, the kids and the parents really wanted to make sure their kids got the sweets. Yeah. And it was real grabbing, fighting time for these sweets. You really honestly, we were kind of quite surprised. It was pretty brutal and quite grim in a way. But it should have been nice because we were giving out sweets. Yeah. But it was just a bundle and a bum fight to get these sweets. And then, so feeling a bit like, oh, this isn't quite what we thought. Then Father Christmas appeared, and they had a firework display which would let off from the top of the a department store. But beneath were all the crowds of people fighting over sweets. Were then rained down on by all the fireworks because there was nowhere for them. So there were people's hair getting singed and burning bits of embers flying down on people. Ghostbusters or something. Honestly, So it was panic and greed and everything going on all at the same time. Wow. Quite good fun, but so that was I think we were employed. So I think that was a paid job. I don't know whether we got paid in sweets or fireworks or I don't know. Paid in weird things sometimes. but it was a kind of little job. So that was an unusual one, giving out sweets. That reminds me. I can imagine what it's like. I remember I once did a job, and this was in Liverpool, and it was for McCoy's Crisps. And we had this promotion, and we had truckloads of crisps, giving away free crisps before football matches. Right. And it was a bit of a scrum, and all these kids kept coming back and getting loads of crisps. and then we'd sort of give some out of the little ale, and some people would walk down the street eating some crisps, and we'd say, "Oh, there's some free crisps," and they'd be like, "Oh, just
spent 10p on a bag of crisps for these kids. So enterprising young kids there were like getting bags of crisps and then going down the road and just selling them.
Yeah. Excellent.
Well done.
Why not?
Yeah.
Very, very good. So, well, no, of course, then the other job we had in that time, I think, well, this is sort of a performing job, but because we were trying to do comedy, I don't count it as an acting job, or even though it was an acting job. What I mean is, it wasn't what we were trying to do, but we got jobs as TV and film extras.
Oh, yeah.
We signed up to an agency.
Yeah.
And because we were in Manchester, we got a lot of jobs on soap operas. So we did Coronation Street, and me and Simon bought chips next to Ivy Tilsley one day, which was very exciting. We did Brookside. We were at a disco in Brookside. And there was a soap called Albion Market.
I remember that. Yeah.
Right. Well, we were everybody in the crowd in Albion Market. And sometimes we did that for weeks. And they'd say, turn up in the morning. Can you bring several scarves, hats and coats?
Yeah.
And literally you'd go out, walk around the market,
go back.
And go back.
Yeah.
And that was very funny. And we did a lot of that. We got sent off to do, we did a period drama that Robert Hardy was in, I think. I think it's Robert Hardy. Simon clashed with him on the stairs and ended up treading on his foot, which he wasn't. He wasn't very impressed.
I can imagine him being very theatrical about
it. He was a little bit. Simon would tell the story, but it was a bit like that. So I can't remember what that was called. Was it Lost Empires? Does that mean anything to you?
I don't know.
Doesn't matter. It
I
was
would have
years
been
ago.
young, yeah.
But it was those kind of things we were doing. And another one which we did where we had to be soldiers on a train station platform, and we were being paraded. And Simon always laughs because I've always had a bit of a thing for authority, not being very good with it, I guess.
Yeah.
And actually being drilled by a real sergeant major when I wasn't even a soldier didn't really sit well with me. But it's not that I was kind of like particularly aggressive or even rebellious. It's just that every time he turned his back, I just put two fingers up and like a little kid, really. Just my little act of rebellion. But that was quite funny, yeah. And we'd always ask for moustaches and funny wigs and things, because a lot of the people who turned up were either dancers or performers who were quite protective of how they looked.
Yeah.
Whereas we didn't give a
care,
toss.
yeah.
We really didn't. So we said, we'll have our haircut. So we had bizarre haircuts, period haircuts that at the time were actually quite fashionable in the alternative scene. So we didn't mind.
Yeah.
But of course, if you were, I don't know, some showbiz dancer or performer, you probably didn't want short back and
to look your
sides.
best at all times.
So, but we'd have the moustache, wig, haircut, whatever they were offering, really. Because I think sometimes you got paid more as well if you were offered to have your haircut.
There's all kinds of some friends of mine used to work at an extras agency.
Oh right, okay.
And I've seen the sort of chat. There's all kinds of different boxes you can tick for as to what you get paid.
That's
you
right.
get your basic rate.
Yeah.
But then if you were like featured, which means if you were like just stood prominently, like next to a main character, you get a bit extra. If you've got a line,
that's
then
big.
that's big.
Yeah.
That's different. If you had to do an action. So there was just your basic, just stood in a crowd.
That's it.
But there was all these little ticks for like different things. And
we didn't tick many boxes, I'm
yeah.
afraid. We did tick the haircut box, I think, and moustache box. There was one point actually when the director said, "Oh, excuse me, you." I went, "What, me?" Oh. Yeah, you. Can you stand there? And I went, "Yeah, of course."
Here we go.
How do you want me to stand? He said, "It doesn't matter as long as you can cover that lighting pole. I don't care." And it was a really good lesson actually. Then I just realised what it was all about. Because initially you turn up at those things and you think, "Oh yeah, they're all looking at me," and of course no one's looking at you at all.
Yeah.
You know? They're just looking at not covering something up or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was really good. But weirdly enough, the guy who ran the agency that we belonged to, the agency was called Nidges. Now, he was a guy called Nigel who went on to manage a band called Take That.
Blimey.
And did very well.
Wow.
So, we got out of there, though. So we didn't do well in film and TV acting or in boy bands. So that wasn't our thing.
Yeah, it can be quite good. A lot of people just do it as a...
I know,
the time,
and they're called SAs now, aren't they? I think
supporting artists.
Supporting artists.
I'm not an extra, darling. I'm
no,
a supporting artist.
Yeah, but we were definitely extras. Yeah, that was good. So after that, it was then off to London, and then of course we were doing. I think probably Simon, if anyone's listened to Simon's interview, which I'm sure they have, he told you about doing the pub circuit, which we did in London, where we would go along to, there were just pubs all around London that had little comedy nights, alternative comedy nights, and you'd turn up there and do your 20 minutes, and then you'd get a split of the door, which, if you were lucky, was $5 each, maybe a tenner, and didn't really get you very far by the time you maybe had a drink and got yourself home. Although I did tend to cycle, so that didn't cost me much. That was always a bit odd, cycling to comedy gigs with all the props in my saddlebag of my bike, because we had a big plastic fish that was one of our...
Yeah, I've heard about the fish, yeah.
Oh, it's legendary, the fish. We were called the Devilfish Horn Club, you see, and this was the fish of Devilfish Horn Club. But I'd go cycling around with this big fish stuck out the back of the bike. So anyway, we weren't earning much on the comedy circuit, so we had to supplement our days with working.
Yeah.
So that's when I got my sort of first proper adult job, I suppose, which I think Simon did the same, and this is why I ended up. There's a whole bunch of us who all signed up to Manpower, which was the temporary agency.
Yeah, it's funny. I've heard Simon and Sophie's also mentioned Manpower.
Manpower.
So
it was.
I don't think they're going now.
I don't think so. No. But it was an employment agency, so temporary employment. Yeah. And if you had some time to spare and you needed, it was all kind of jobs, like businesses either needing someone to fill in for someone who'd, off sick, or an odd job that they needed doing in the office that no one else wanted to do. Yeah. Basically, usually rather either a dull job or an unpleasant one. And I rather because I was living in Kennington at the time, near Old Kent Road. I signed on to the Manpower office on the Old Kent Road near the Elephant and Castle. Whereas Simon and all the others were living in, I don't know why, they were living in Streatham, but they signed on to the Knightsbridge one, which was probably a better call because they ended up getting some quite glamorous jobs. In fact, Simon was doorman at the Colombian Embassy.
Yes, he talked about that.
Okay, well, my first job was signing on Elephant and Castle one, and I had to meet some guys at Elephant and Castle, corner of the road. There were a whole bunch of guys. A white transit van pulled up. We all had to pile in the back of that. And then we drove for 2-3 hours. I don't know where we went, up the motorway, up the M1 somewhere. I didn't know where we were going. We ended up on this industrial estate. We went into this massive warehouse full of paint tins of paint everywhere on pallets piled up, towers of tins of paint. And basically they said, all these tins of paint have faulty handles on them. They've gone brittle. If you pick them up, they break. Obviously, that's no good because they're full of paint.
Yeah.
So they need to be replaced with these nice new flexible plastic handles.
Right.
So all we want you to do, lads, is all day for the next week is take the handles off and put the handles on. Take the handles off, put the handles on. And that's what we did. And then at the end of the day, we'd drive 3 hours back through the rush hour down the motorway back into London again. And I can't say I enjoyed it a lot.
No, it doesn't sound a lot of fun.
It didn't pay a lot of money anyway, because you were paid a flat rate with Manpower. It wasn't particularly like, as far as I remember, whatever job you did, they basically paid you their hourly rate or whatever it was, daily rate.
So you could have improved it by doing more handles.
It didn't matter, I don't think. So it didn't matter what job I was doing. So I thought, well, actually, I think there might be a better kind of job at Knightsbridge. So I decided to leave.
Switch branches.
I'm going up market. Yeah. So I went over to the Knightsbridge one. And they did get me a job that was perhaps, I don't know whether it was any more enjoyable, but I got a job at St Bart's Hospital.
Oh, yeah.
And this was inputting data onto something that was called a computer. So this was
it was like a whole room?
It was, No, it was like one of the first word processors, I guess, that they had in their office. And again, it was one of those jobs that no one else wanted to do. I was given a pile of paper because, of course, everything was on files, paper then anyway. Yeah. But they wanted to go digital, or, you know, this was the new thing. So someone had to pretty much type in. I suppose it was creating what would now be called a spreadsheet, but I don't think there was such a thing then. It was more just like typing information on
a disk, floppy disk.
That's it, floppy disk. Well done, And that's what I did. So I sat there all day, but that was quite interesting. It was quite interesting seeing how a hospital worked and that kind of thing. It was not very exciting. I don't even remember. I was in one corner of an office that didn't have a lot going for it either. It was the NHS. It wasn't going to be swanky anyway.
No.
So, but it was nice. It felt like I was doing something worthy and proper,
Yeah.
and so rewarding in that sense. And I felt quite grown up doing that. And then after that, I got a job, then a more permanent one. That's right. I was offered a job again initially as a temp at General Accident Insurance on Hyde Park Corner. So I think I was offered to stay there for as long as I wanted, really. So I carried on there while we were still doing the comedy in the evenings. I was an insurance clerk by day. And so I became like a London commuter, really, just living the London life. I lived in Peckham at the time, funnily enough, above the job centre on Rye Lane. but weirdly, I used to go to wherever it was, Knightsbridge, to get my work. But so I used to get on the bus. I think it was the 36 bus or number 12, one of them, and that would get off at Hyde Park Corner, going to work every day. Excuse me.
Were you doing lots of gigs while you were working? So you worked days.
We were doing quite a lot of gigs.
Yeah.
And so that's when things were going really well.
Yeah.
And we'd got because by the time we did about 2 years at the most. I think probably a year and a half, 2 years on the circuit in London. So we had built up quite a good name for ourselves. At some of the clubs, we'd occasionally get at top of the bill, or we'd get because we were a bit different and we were a double act. I think people quite liked to put us on either at the beginning to kind of warm things up, because we did a lot of audience participation stuff, or at the end because we were kind of visual as well and a bit different to just the stand-ups. But we were doing some good stuff, and back then we were on the bill with people like Paul Merton,
right,
Joe Brand, Jack D. They're all people. I'm sure there's lots of names. Jenny Eclair, Hattie Hayridge, all those people were doing stuff. It was a really exciting time. And of course Arthur Smith and Phil Nice, who were doing a double act then called Fiasco Job,
right.
And they were kind of heroes of ours, really, because they were really good double acts.
Yeah.
And very funny together. I mean, Arthur Smith's very funny, and people probably know him more than Phil Nice, his partner, because he's gone on to do so much more on radio and things like that.
And he's also got a very recognisable voice.
Yeah.
He gets used a lot for voiceover.
Yeah. But Phil's done a lot of comedy acting as well. He's cropped up in lots of things. But they were brilliant together. They had a really good relationship. And we didn't pinch things from them, but we were inspired by them. Which is how you work, I think, when everyone's out doing stuff together. It's a bit like artists, don't they? They all pinch.
Well, nobody exists in a vacuum.
No, exactly.
You've always got
so we were very influenced by them.
Yeah.
And there was another act then who'd been around earlier. Do you remember the Vicious Boys? They were a street act mainly, but they also did a show on London Weekend TV, and then they went out. I think they did some other TV stuff as well. It was Andy Smart and Angelo Abila. They were good. They were very good.
Yeah.
And we kind of they were quite an influence on us as well as the big acts of the time like Rick Mail and Nate Edmondson.
Yeah.
And acts like old acts that had been and gone. Abbott and Costello and Cannonball, Morecambe and Wise.
I've always seen a lot of like Morecambe and Wise in Trevor.
Well, I think when we did with the guest thing, I think that's definitely where we were getting our kind of motivation and inspiration from, because the way Morecambe and Wise used to work with guests was just a thing of our childhood. It was the Christmas thing.
It was, yeah.
And
it was an institution.
And it was brilliant. And the way that the guests played along or didn't play along or pretended not to, or whatever it was, that thing of the mock offence or being, and the way Eric Morecambe could be so rude to people.
Yeah.
And, and Ernie Wise would go, no, do all the kind of smoothing over.
Yeah.
And I think, we used to take turns of doing that, really.
Yeah.
Sometimes, usually Simon was the rudest, I think, and I'd do the smoothing over. Then sometimes it went the other way, really. It depended on what characters we were playing a bit. But they were very much an influence, I think. So lots of stuff was going on at that point. And so we had to make a decision. Simon was I think he's told you, was at the British College of Ophthalmic Opticians.
That's right, yeah.
Doing a filing job. Again, a job no one else wanted to do.
Yeah.
But he was in a room. getting told off for wearing polo necks because he looked like a fascist.
That's
and
right.
I'm wearing a polo neck today.
That's what you said, like Oswald Mosley, yeah.
Well, I've got this one. This one's a sort of, I don't know what we call this, teal blue or something. So
yeah, yours is more Roger Moore.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh, yes, of course. But yes, I've always had a thing for polo necks since the 80s, I think. Mm-hmm. That reminds me, because when I was working in as the insurance clerk in Hyde Park Corner, just round the corner from Hyde Park Corner, was a little place called the Minima, which was a small independent arts cinema.
That's right.
And it was called the Minima because it was tiny. It had about maybe 12 armchairs in it, but they were individual chairs, big fat armchairs with big arms that you and.
Is it still going?
I have no idea.
I sure remember it when I first moved to London. But I don't know if it's still.
It may well be. I don't know.
Maybe,
I've not been since then.
Yeah.
But because I think I thought I was part of some alternative arts kind of scene, and I thought, yes, I must go to the Minima. I know I'm an insurance clerk by day, but by night I'm an alternative creator, So I'm going to wear my black polo neck and I'm going to go and see this French avant-garde film called Vagabond, it was. And it was it had Sandrine Bonnaire in it as a young... homeless girl really who goes travelling around France and gets into trouble and it just slowly she sort of goes downhill and ends up in a very bad place, and it's a very sad ending, and it's a really bleak and depressing film. And it's very slow, and that kind of French ultra realism kind of quite slow. Not a great kind of story arc. It's not an action film.
It's more of a mood piece.
It's very much a mood piece. I mean, it's a great film. I saw it again recently. Me and Kath, my wife, went to our local art cinema because it was on, and we sort of went and revisited it. And it holds up.
Yeah.
But I was a bit of a poser. I just thought, go and see this film, and sitting there in my polo neck.
It's like putting your arts cape on. It's a superhero kind of outfit.
Yeah. So that was at the end of the day of sorting out people's
by day, insurance clerk. By night, artsman.
Yeah. But the place working there was incredible because now it just wouldn't be the same. They had a basement which was full of paper, the insurance office. And you get a phone call and someone would say, hello, I'm phoning about this claim. And you'd say, okay, I'm going to go away and I'll call you back probably in about 2 days' time. Because you'd then have to go down into the basement, go through all these racks, pull out these files, get the file out, take it upstairs, sit it down, phone them back, go through it. And it was it was bizarre. I can't remember what I had to do, but you just had to update people on claims and all those sort of things and keep the ball rolling on things. Quite often there was nothing you could do about it, and you'd put a cross through it and send it back down to the basement again, and off it would disappear. So I did that, but I obviously did quite well at it because the manager took me into his office one morning and said, look, we'd like to offer you a management job here.
Cool.
So I said, oh, well, thank you. But no, thank you.
Yeah.
And he said, well, what do you mean? I don't think anyone ever said no.
I'm very dirty.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was quite good because I felt a bit like Jimmy and Quadrophenia, you can stick your job, whatever.
Yeah.
But because I didn't want to be there. I mean, they were nice people, and it obviously the money was good, and I wasn't ungrateful. But at the same time, it wasn't what I'd imagined myself doing.
Yeah.
And there's no disrespect to people who work for an insurance company. It's a job, but it wasn't what I'd imagined at that point. I wanted to be alternative comedian. So I said, no, I'm going to be a comedian. And I don't think I'd shown any sign of being particularly funny, certainly not in that job. Half the time I was either hungover or half asleep anyway. So, I wasn't planning to try and be funny during that time. So anyway, he looked at me as if I was mad, and he just said, well, look, the door's open, I think imagining that at some point I would
come back with your tail between your legs.
Yeah. I didn't go back, thankfully.
No, obviously.
And I wouldn't have done anyway.
Yeah.
So then I left there, and we pretty shortly after that we heard about this audition for a Saturday morning program, the new one that was going to follow on from Saturday Superstore, and that brings me on to my other job, because somewhere in between that and the audition, I stopped working at General Accident. I'm giving them a good plug, aren't I, actually?
Yeah. Other insurance companies are available.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just going to have a little drink.
They even have computers.
They do now, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all emails these days.
Yeah.
But no, sometime in between then and going for this audition, a friend of mine asked, a friend of mine, her brother-in-law, who was also a friend of ours, we all kind of knew each other, was a builder, an independent builder, and he needed some people to help him out on certain jobs. And so I think Simon may have done a bit, but another mate, Simon Bly, who's a comedian and now a karate expert as well. And we did some work together for this guy called Brian, who employed us as just labourers, I guess. So we were doing up houses quite posh houses in Holland Park and Greenwich, and because they needed a lot of people.
Yeah.
So sometimes I was up the scaffolding at the front of a house in Holland Park, painting all the sash windows and all that kind of thing. And I remember in Greenwich taking a load of earth out of the back garden, having to go up a plank to a skip to empty it out, getting halfway up the plank, tipping the wheelbarrow over the street, so having to do it all. I wasn't a great builder, really. I didn't quite have the strength for a wheelbarrow full of earth, really. But they gave us, he was good. Gave us sledgehammers once, sent us into a room and said, "Can you knock that wall down?" This was before any health and safety stuff, no mask, nothing like that. So we were just in this room full of dust, whacking this wall down. So that kind of thing. And then, so it was when I was doing that, I remember working on the job in Greenwich, and so I had loaded dusty old denims on, and I said, right, I've got to go now. I'm going to go over to the BBC, and I've got my half-hour videotape of what we do, and I'm going to give it to the BBC because there's a job going apparently. So I cycled from Greenwich to Shepherd's Bush.
It's a long way.
After a day knocking down walls. And it was a long way then. Yeah. But I was a bit mad then. I'd got to the point where I was sick of the tube.
Yeah.
And everything took forever. And to get, you know what it's like, to get from, southeast London over to Shepherd's Bush is a long old journey.
It's true.
However you do it. And
I used to cycle from Wanstead to the Elephant and Castle where I worked.
Right.
And on the train, it took an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
On my bike, it took 55.
Exactly.
So it was definitely
and
the way
it felt
to do
good.
It. Yeah.
Sometimes it felt, I mean, me and Simon Bly I often remember, because he used to be a regular at the Comedy Store, and we would go and see him there, and at the end, you'd obviously have a few drinks, and that's the other thing. It probably wasn't. It's not allowed now. It wasn't allowed then.
Yeah.
But you could have a few drinks and cycle, and so we used to cycle home from the Comedy Store, 2 or 3 in the morning. And I remember once we stopped at some traffic lights and were so drunk we forgot to put our feet down, or at least I did. Stopped at the traffic lights, just keeled over, bang. But there was some brilliant times, just cycling down Old Kent Road at 2 in the morning at night, where it's just not much traffic around. It's just nothing like it, really.
No.
And I've always loved cycling. I haven't done so much in the past couple of years, but those kind of moments, nighttime cycling, or just when the roads are empty, or the cars aren't around, it's just very good. And drunk cycling is fun, but I don't recommend it. Obviously,
not to be advised, but
not to be advised at all. But yes, so I can't remember how we were getting onto this now, but there was a point.
It was your audition tape.
Yeah, okay, so that's right. So anyway, I had cycled from the building job in Greenwich, wherever it was, to Shepherd's Bush, and I arrived looking a bit, probably not very much like a children's TV entertainer, just looking like someone who probably needed a job, really.
Probably thought you were the courier.
I may have well thought I was the courier. So I turned up with my tape, and I can't remember whether we watched it together. I don't know why I went on my own. Because I just said I'd deliver it. And and again, everything was, you had to do everything yourself, so I was going to do it for us. I don't remember if I sat through it or not. I think maybe me and Simon went in later on. The boss, Chris Bellinger, called us in and looked through the tape and said, it was about half an hour of stuff, and it was different live performances we'd done. And he said, yes, you've got half an hour stuff here. I think there's probably one joke that's suitable for our audience. So we went, oh, okay. And it was quite a good joke, though. It was the egg and spoon race. We had a spoon and an egg, and we said, right, we're going to have an egg and spoon race. And then we'd put it down on the ground, both of them, and go, come on, come on, come on. So the idea is that anyway,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
I was just wondering if it translated.
No, it did.
Audio wise. So we said, well, look, okay, I know a lot of the stuff we're doing is sort of political, and there's a bit of like adult language in it, and a lot of the references were quite adult. I said, but look, if you look at it, essentially the sense of humour is just silly, and I think we can do that for your audience. We'll just do the silly stuff, and we'll ignore the stuff that's maybe inappropriate for your audience. Although we didn't use the word inappropriate then, but you know what I mean.
Unsuitable.
Whatever.
Whatever.
yeah. And so anyway, so he said, right, well, we'll give you another audition then. And that's when we had to go into a room with Philip Schofield and a chicken costume and see what we could do, improvise. They literally said, go in.
So was Philip Schofield auditioning you?
He kind of was.
Yeah.
He knew he'd had the job.
Right.
They knew he was going to be the presenter.
Yeah.
So they put us in with him so they could see how we acted together, see what ideas we came up with. And I guess we put him into the chicken costume, but I or maybe one of us I think we probably put him in it.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't remember what happened.
No.
Then we had to do another audition. We passed that stage, and they put us into a rehearsal room with some real kids and parents and whatever there, and we had to entertain them for, I don't know, 20 minutes or something, 10 minutes.
Which isn't easy.
No, but we'd done that before. Before we'd gone to London and left university, during the miners' strike, we were given quite a few jobs just entertaining families and things for miners' families and stuff. And we were going around doing it. So there were lots of kids and families.
Yeah.
And we were used to kind of chaotic situations.
Yeah.
Because those sort of things are great fun, but they are chaotic. And you can't go in thinking you've got a great show to perform. You've just got to have for fun, really.
Yeah, roll with whatever
So
it transpires.
Yeah, and a lot of our stuff was interactive, and it involved giving out things and mucking about with silly props. So quite often we would go completely off our script, as it were. Not sometimes. Yeah, I mean, it was a script, but we'd go off and just see what.
Yeah.
So in this situation, we weren't particularly fazed by that, and we took in a few extra props. And I think we did a kind of spoof on the Beastie Boys, No Sleep Till Brooklyn.
Yeah.
I think we did it as No Sleep Till Bedtime, I think is what we did. And we did something like that. There may have been someone else's joke, I don't know. But we did something like that. So we had a few little props, and we tried to keep it a bit contemporary, and yeah, and they obviously liked it, because then I think it came down to us and one other double act, and in the end we just waited for a phone call, and I remember being with Simon at a mate's house, and the phone call came through and said, we'd like to offer you the job. And at that point, you know, having with all those various jobs I've talked about, which you were doing for money and not getting any money, doing the actual comedy, and you know, it was like, oh my god, this is like a Saturday morning shot on BBC One, and then there was BBC One, there was BBC Two, there was ITV, and just Channel 4, only just, maybe not even then.
There wasn't. Channel 4 was 84, I think.
Well,
so, but probably not
so
in the morning. I remember when Channel 4 started, it didn't start till countdown.
Right. Well, the point being was that this was like massive, because there were only 3 major channels. Yeah. And there wasn't YouTube, there wasn't the internet. And, you know, there just wasn't anything else. So we knew that we'd be getting big audiences. And that show at any one point was getting 3 million people. And then over the morning, it was getting up to 9 million or something like that.
Yeah.
So I was quite scared by it, but also really excited, thinking, yes, we're going to make our fortunes, and this is it. And I mean, and it kind of was all that, but the fortune was, I think, 180 quid each a week or something like that, which then wasn't bad at all.
Not bad, no.
But not quite what we expected, you know.
No, it's not Hollywood.
It wasn't Hollywood, no. But anyway, then things went on. It got a bit better after that.
Well, yeah, obviously once you got established and things.
About 280
Do you remember what the
quid
first sketch was that you did?
The first sketch was, I'm trying to think, there was a few little bits and pieces. The first major sketch we did was a thing called My Little Plastic Spoon. We basically were trying to show kids how to make toys out of household items. And it was rather than have My Little Pony, we thought if you got a plastic spoon one of those white plastic spoons you take on picnics or you find in cafes, things like that, and put some kind of fake hair on it, you could have as much fun with that as you could with the My Little Pony. It was slightly satirical again, I think, really. But there was that, and My Little Plastic Cup, I think we had, and there was a theme there of plastic
things,
cutlery and items that you could add hair and comb. And I can't remember what else we did. We did about 3 or 4 sketches on that first show. I remember that almost the first time I was told that we were going live, I was looking at the wrong camera for about 2 minutes, or it seemed like 2 minutes. It was only seconds, really.
Yeah.
So all that kind of thing you just learned as you went along. Because again, suddenly being in a TV studio, after being in a noisy pub environment or comedy club environment, was quite a shock. Because you see it on TV and you think, oh yeah, it's like a lively, full of kids, it's all going on. It's actually a very small studio, really quiet. They bring in the kids when they need them, or they did then, put them in, and otherwise they were down in a basement eating snacks and sandwiches, and then they'd be brought up when they were needed. So most of the time, though, it was a very quiet studio, and you'd be in the corner in your little bit, doing your bit, and then suddenly someone would just wave at you, you're on, And sometimes we started learning how to have an earpiece.
I was just going to ask if you had an earpiece, and they'd say, Trevor, look at the camera,
Which we struggled with, and thankfully they did, eventually those sort of things were useful, like, camera one, look at that one, don't look there, don't say that again, that kind of thing, But we struggled with it to start with, because when we were doing scripted sketches, which we planned, we'd written in the week, we'd be in the middle of scripts and they'd sort of go 30 seconds left in your ear, and it would just completely throw you. Yeah. So we had to say, look, if we're doing like a sketch, no, please don't talk to us, because everyone else was used to it. Philip and Sarah and all that had all these countdowns going on all the time.
Yeah.
And maybe we just weren't very good at it, but actually trying to...
you have more of a script.
Well, having a script and trying to improvise and sort of try and get some comedy timing in, and then someone in your ear going, wrap it up, lads, or 10 seconds left, or a countdown, in that like 5, 4, So, no, we asked for that not to happen while we were doing it. But, it was good. It was a really good. A lot of learning experience and stuff. It was really...
Right. And then after Trevor and Simon, because that went for 10 years.
It did.
Which was a long time.
1987 to 1997. Yeah. Well, 96, my newest job was being a dad, because
of course
we had the twins in 96, twin girls, which was very exciting. And so that was a whole new job. It's something I hadn't quite imagined.
Yeah.
And actually having 2 at once meant that me and my wife were both had equal duties, really. So there was no shirking on my part.
No.
I had to get involved, she had to get involved. We very much shared it. And so they for the first year before we finished going live, the twins were sort of came in. I remember we outstayed our time in my dressing room after one of the shows with the twins there, and we were changing nappies and things. And when I finished my dressing room, it became Noel Edmonds' dressing room for whatever came for that night. Was it late breakfast show in the evening or something? Oh yeah,
or Noel's house party.
House party, probably, yeah. So he used to come in the afternoon to prepare for that.
Yeah.
And I remember him he came walking in, and there was like nappies all over the floor. No. We were still there. Sorry, no, he wasn't too pleased. But that was So that was good fun. And I remember Andy Peters and Emma Forbes, who were the presenters at the time, buying sort of presents for the kids and things.
Oh, that's nice.
It was fun. So then I was a dad, and we went on to do other work. Then obviously we
did some shows.
We did some did some other TV shows, and then we ended up doing lots of writing and things. So we carried on working together.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think then when I did see, and then though there was a bit more time. I suppose we had a bit more time. We were still doing some live performances. We went out and did student nights and a nightclub tour, which was quite strange. I mean, going out and doing like, hey, nostalgic characters from kids' TV at 1 o'clock in the morning in nightclubs is a weird thing, and people are so drunk that you could be doing anything. You know, in the end, when we were doing those tours, we gave up trying to do any comedy in a sense, or doing it, because it didn't matter. It was too much noise. They were all drunk. They just wanted
those nightclub things. It's just like, turn up, it's me.
Yeah, and their concentration is about 2 minutes. Yeah. So once you've said it's me, that's it.
Do a catchphrase.
We did a catchphrase, and then we started to just play games. So and it was like doing a kids show again. We get, you know, they were students or they were, you know, young adults, absolutely, you know, drunk, smashed, and they would come up on stage, and we'd make them do daft things and give out prizes, which, you know, it wasn't the most creative thing, but it was really quite good fun.
Yeah.
And it was all based on our characters and things. But, you know, like the first, I think we went up somewhere in, I can't remember where it was, Ipswich or somewhere. We turned up, we got on stage, got a volunteer up, and we said, right, we're going to play some games. And the guy leaned into me and just said, oh, can I get my knob out? And I went, what? No, why? We're not, you know. And that was just the level of it, really. But he didn't do that. And I don't think he was too disappointed. We just, you know, I don't know, gave him a bottle of something and got rid of him quickly. But it was that kind of tone quite often.
Right, yeah.
So there was that kind of stuff. And in the in-between times, we were writing scripts for kids' TV. We wrote lots of different, you know, other kids' TV programs and stuff. And we were kept, busy with that for a long time, and still have been up until very recently.
Yeah, of course, you got a BAFTA.
I did get my BAFTA. Yeah, I was trying to see what that was. Only, it was only 2018, last year. Yeah. In fact, it was a year ago. Yeah, that came completely out of the blue. I'd been working, Simon had as well, working on Get Well Soon, which was the show for CBeebies with Dr. Ranj. Puppets being diagnosed with medical issues, and then he would sing a song about it, and whether it was, you know, constipation or having an injection or whatever it was, you know, he'd sing a song about it. And I wrote one about the MMR, which is still really topical, because people still think that there is a link between having the MMR and autism, and it's been disproved, completely
time and
disproved,
time again,
over and over and over. Yeah. And hence now people still aren't having the MMR injection, and so suddenly now we've got measles are coming back, and it's causing lots of problems. Surprise, surprise. So one of my scripts was about one of the puppets that goes in for an injection to have the MMR, and of course it discusses what measles is and mumps and rubella, and mainly it's also about fear of injections, and so it's to try and kind of, you know, alleviate some of the worry and stress that children might have if they're going to have an injection. And it was quite a nice little script. I think it's not top comedy, and it's certainly not alternative comedy particularly. But along the way, you know, we've learnt some skills, I guess, where we can make light of otherwise that might be quite dry kind of subject.
Yeah.
And that seemed to be particularly successful, that one. And so I was picked up then to become the sole writer on Get Well Soon Hospital, which was initially going to be an app, which I didn't really understand at that point. What do you mean it's an app? I've got to write an app? I don't know what an app is. But I wrote it, and then the app won a BAFTA. But I didn't know about that, and I only saw it on Twitter that there was, you know, Ranj was waving his BAFTA. I thought, oh, that's exciting. So I found out about that, thinking that would be it. And then it went to CBeebies, and then the following year, which was last year, suddenly I got this thing through saying, Get Well Soon Hospital's won a BAFTA. So I thought, oh, another one, that's fantastic. So I was invited along, and it was, you know, you couldn't bring partners or anything. So it was the table with the production team. The director and the producer, who I'd actually never met, were there. But because I just worked from a home office, and it's all emailed in. I did go in initially for like a 4-hour meeting with Ranj and the researcher, and we'd done all this. But you don't, and I knew some of the team anyway from other projects, but it's not like you're all working on this thing for forever and ever. So I suddenly felt slightly a bit out of it. But there I was, sat on the table, and very excited to be there. And there was all the, you know, the stars of kids' TV all around, which was really good fun. And then you know, when apparently I was told, you know if you're going to win or not, because the camera crew suddenly come over to your table just as about to make the announcement. So I was kind of thinking, oh, I wonder if we won. I'll see where the camera crew go. So the camera crew came over to our table, hovered there for a bit, and I looked at the producer, and we both put thumbs up, this is it. And then they moved off, to the other table, which was the rival show, and I can't remember what that is now. It's probably best I don't say it anyway, but they were the rivals. So we thought, oh, it's gone to them. And then just the last second before they announced it, the camera turned round, and was pointing right at me and the people that, and I was thinking, what? So we have won. And then they announced it. Yeah. So we won, and it was great. And all the table cheered. And I said, oh, so who's going up? And they said, it's you. And I said, what do you mean it's me? And I looked up and it said writer, producer and director. So the 3 people who get the BAFTA were those people.
Right.
And then the writer was me, Trevor Neal. So it was only at that point I realised it wasn't a group thing. I thought it was just a team award.
Yeah.
That's the thing. But it wasn't. So we all went upstage. Rand was up there, of course. He got up to the mic. He did the speech, which was fantastic. But then we would go backstage and are given the awards, and it was just me and the other 2 who actually get the hardware, the thing. So that was it was very funny. I mean, having been really sort of nervous and scared, and I'd done so much kind of stuff at home, right? Been writing at home for ages and looking after my mum, looking after the family, just doing ordinary things, really. Suddenly to be thrown back into this world was kind of weird. But I thought, well, I'm going to enjoy this. And I wasn't really with anyone who were close mates who I knew really well. And the people I did know do this thing all the time. They just cleared off. So I thought, well, I don't know what to do now. I've got my award, the meal's over, but the bar's open. So I went and stood up at the bar and I just plonked my BAFTA on the bar and just stood there and had to drink. And then because of the way those things are, there were people I recognised and people drifted up, and I ended up staying just drinking for a good couple of hours and chatting to people. A lot of people I'd obviously never met before. We all just had a good chat. Some people I knew. And so I then ended up walking out down Camden High Street about 1:30 in the morning, just waving my BAFTA around because I'd got myself a little a room in a hotel down in near Euston. So I had a bit of a walk to go. And I could have got a taxi, but I thought, I've got my BAFTA. This is heavy, exactly. And then at one point, I was very tempted to go into a pub in Camden, which looked really lively. And I thought, no, actually, I'd be pushing my luck now to walk in there.
You're not leaving with your BAFTA.
Exactly. I had one of my daft hats on, and I was like thinking, no, that's going to be a bit silly. So anyway, I went back to my hotel, feeling very pleased with myself.
Well done. Brilliant. So you mentioned before we started, you said you've got a story that you've played Glastonbury.
Well, yeah. Well, this is the thing. At the time, sort of post Live and Kicking.
Yeah.
And then in between jobs when we were writing or whatever, there was a lot of downtime. I mean, I was like a dad and a house husband, so there was plenty to keep me busy. But when we weren't writing, we weren't performing as much. And I was missing that a little bit. And we had these nightclub tours and stuff like that. But it wasn't kind of creative in the same way. And a mate of mine, David Annan, who's now he's actually in the West End himself doing the Harry Potter show. He's been in that for a number of years. He's a very successful actor. He was with another mate called Josh Smaller, and they'd formed a little sort of duo, sort of punk pop duo called Sucker, and they had a drum machine, bass, and Josh on guitar, David on bass, and the drum machine. And they said, do you fancy joining and doing something? And I said, well, I don't know what I do. I've got a synthesizer, because in the 80s, just before I went to university, 1981, I'd got myself a little synthesizer because I was very into that whole new romantic sound.
Me too.
Spandau Ballet, Journeys to Glory, that album.
It was Nick Kershaw for me. Actually inspired me to buy a synthesizer from Dixon's.
All right, well, I'm going to get techie now. It was an SH-109, a Roland one.
Mine was a Casio. It was a bit down market.
All right, well, I wanted the 101 because that was a polyphonic synth.
Oh, yeah.
And you could play chords then.
Yeah.
Mine was a monophonic one,
Mine
so it was just
too.
one note at a time.
Yeah.
Bip, 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 bip. So I used to spend a lot of time doing like tape-to-tape recording in my rooms, doing things like Tainted Love, Soft Cell and that kind of thing, trying to kind of copy it, and Spandau Ballet riffs. And I was in a band at sixth form as well, where I'd done a bit of keyboards and stuff, and we were trying to be a new romantic band. Cat Loves Dog, I think we were called. But anyway, so back then I'd got out the synthesizer and I said, well, I could do that a bit, I suppose. But I'm not very good. I'm not a natural keyboard player at all. It's all just one note stuff. So for a while, I did that though, and I added some synth lines and was treating it a bit like just a bit of a bed of music underneath what they were doing with the bass and guitars, and then a few little riffs, twiddly riffs, I guess. Twiddly bits.
Yeah.
And that was good fun. And I think the first gig I did with them was a Christmas one. So Christmas stories keep coming back. Actually. So I had a Christmas hat on, which I was forced to wear. In fact, I was given the Christmas hat with the blonde pigtails to wear. And it was the pub on the corner in New Cross, where coach parties used to go in the daytime. And I can't think what it's called.
Not the Amersham Arms.
It may have been the Amersham.
It's right on the corner.
As you come in,
one-way system.
As you come in from New Cross, as you're heading up to Queen's Road, it's sort of on the right. Anyway, this isn't very interesting.
There's a few big pubs there that do music.
It may have been, anyway. It was one that used to have coach parties for people heading out to Kent to get on ferries and things, and they'd stop halfway.
Oh, I think I know which one you mean.
No,
it's a bit further down. Yeah, and it's a massive place. Yeah,
a bit scruffy.
Yeah,
certainly when.
Yeah, I know it. I know which one it is. Don't know what it's called, but
that was our first gig, and so we did. It was all our material, Josh's material. Josh was the songwriter mainly. David did some stuff. I ended up writing stuff later on. So anyway, that was that, and then we did that for a bit. But our main gigs were Lewisham People's Day, and Blythe Hill Festival. So these are both South East London community events, and that went on for a number of years. But then towards the end, I started playing guitar. I said, "Oh, can I try some guitar stuff?" Sort of, rhythm guitar or bits of lead, which was a bit ambitious, but I tried little bits, again, twiddly bits.
Yeah.
And I did write a couple of songs, and we really enjoyed it. Sucker was good fun, and we got a few more gigs than just those two festivals, but they were pretty much that kind of thing. A couple of pubs in Lewisham. Oh, we got to do Dublin Castle and Hope and Anchor, those kind of circuit pubs in London. So it was good to play on the same stage as whoever it was, the Clash or the Stranglers or whoever had played those places. And Madness used to go in the Dublin Castle, so it felt like it was great to play in those venues. Now, obviously we're not the only band to have done that, but it was just nice to do it. And then we were doing all right, and we recorded some stuff. And then when I was doing one of these student nights, me and Simon were on the same bill as, I knew this would happen, one of the Radio 1 hosts. And I'm terrible now, I've forgotten his name. Really nice guy. But anyway, I said, we went and said hello. And I said, yeah, I'm in a band, look, I've got this CD. And he said, are you... And I said, I know why he said we should come on, because that was literally it. Just before that, we got the CD, and Josh's mate worked for EMI, and just by chance, he wangled it for us to get on the first year of the John Peel stage, Sunday morning though, 10:30 in the morning. So it was a slot that no one else wanted, really. But God, anyone would have had it if they weren't a big name.
Of course,
it's Glastonbury. So we were given this proper slot, 10:30 in the morning, Sunday, Glastonbury 2005.
Okay.
The Killers and Kaiser Chiefs and New Order and Elvis Costello, all they were all on the main stage, obviously. Yeah. We were on with, I'm trying to think who were on the John Peel stage that year. Mystery Jets, possibly. Does that sound right?
Rings a bell?
There's others, and I should have thought about that, but I can't remember. Anyway, we knew we were going to Glastonbury. So we're back at the student night, Radio 1 DJ. We're going to Glastonbury. This is us. Oh, well, you better come on our show then. So we did get some play on Radio 1.
Oh, brilliant.
And then we did this gig, and it was just the best thing. It was such good fun. I'd never been to Glastonbury before, funnily enough. I'd done a few festivals, but not many.
Glastonbury's huge.
Yeah, I just couldn't believe it.
I know. First time I went, I was shocked.
Oh, it was amazing. And I volunteered to take all the gear at that point because I had 4 children. I had an old Japanese people carrier thing that was an import, so you could put all the seats down and it was like a camper van. So I put all the gear in that, The other guys went on down to stay there Thursday night, which I'm glad I didn't do, because that was the night it flooded really bad. 2005, it was really wet. Oh, yeah. And the Thursday night, or the Friday night, I think it was the Thursday or Friday, absolutely flooded. And all around the John Peel tent was just a lake.
Yeah.
Thankfully, my friends and Simon had gone down early, because I obviously had a few guests, and Simon, I said, come on down and be our manager, whatever. Yeah. So he got in on that. And we had another couple of friends who said they were going to, some girls we met who wanted to do backing singing and that. So they came down, and it was just fun. It was just a bit of a party. But yeah, so I missed the flood. But I was coming down in the van, which was having a new crankshaft fitted the day before, which is, fairly big job. Went to start it that morning. All the electrics are gone. It wouldn't start. So they're all flooded out in Glastonbury. I'm in Broadstairs with a broken down van and all the equipment. And so I got the AA out. I said, I've got to get to Glastonbury today. They sorted out the electrics. They said, right, that's going. Just don't switch it off and stop. I said, I know, but I'm going to Glastonbury. I said, well, keep the engine running. So literally, I just had to go all the way from
non-stop
east to west, non-stop, keeping the engine running if I had to run out to go to the toilet or get something to eat, anything like that. Anyway, I made it. That wasn't the biggest drama, but it made it slightly more stressful,
Yeah.
Got there, parked it in a field, and then realised you still have to walk a mile to
to get to your destination.
Yeah, where you're going,
and especially when it's been raining. It's hard work.
Mad. It was bonkers, but really good fun.
Yeah.
And I met up with Simon, and that first night we wandered round in our wellies. I'm not sure he had wellies. I had wellies. I think he had trainers with plastic bags over them. Right. And we found, weirdly, there was all these kind of sort of funky places, and me and him found this little pasta restaurant. Well, it wasn't a restaurant, little pop-up kind of tent. We sat and had some pasta and a bottle of wine there with our up to our ankles in water, and then the next day we just enjoyed the festival. He went to see Echo and the Bunnymen. They were on. I went off and decided I'd do some promotion for the Sunday morning. So I blagged a ticket for backstage at the Pyramid stage, and I don't know how I did it. I think because the press people at the John Peel stage obviously wanted extra promotion for them, and they knew, because they knew I'd been on the telly, they were happy to give me a press pass or something. So I was very lucky. I ended up going backstage at the Pyramid stage, where I bumped into Chris Moyles, and he went, "Oh, Trevor and Simon, yeah, have a drink." So we had a drink, and then we got chatting, and we went round, we met all kinds of people, and then Ricky from the Kaiser Chiefs turned up and said hi to him, and it was like, I was just in one of these really lucky kind of surprise moments. Maybe not lucky for everyone, maybe Chris Moores and Ricky from the Kaiser Chiefs isn't everyone's idea of a party, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And so I was giving out cards to everyone I could, saying, look, we're on 10:30, whatever, 10 o'clock Sunday morning. And of course people go, yeah, of course I'll come. And there's no way anyone was getting up at that time of the morning. But we did play it, and it went down really well. I don't know how many were there. There was it was one of these sort of half tent, half kind of arena-y things.
Yes.
So you would sort of spill outside. But all the tent thing was full. It felt like a good crowd. And it went down well, and nothing bad happened. And somewhere there is a video of it, but I've not seen it.
It's probably on YouTube somewhere. You search for it.
Maybe.
But everything's on YouTube.
But it was great. It was a fantastic experience. Really, really good.
That sounds brilliant. Yeah.
I think I should mention though that I then having get here. I then I was in another band and formed with some friends, Thanet City Rockers, because
right.
I don't know, people who
you're
don't
still
know.
playing in bands now.
Yeah, Thanet is Broadstairs, Margate, Ramsgate.
Yeah.
This sort of little island in the East Kent corner is Thanet. So we were Thanet City Rockers. We did that for a number of years, which is now morphed into Charlie Don't Surf,
of course,
who I play with now. And that's brilliant. We've got, it's...
Can we find Charlie Don't Surf?
Charlie Don't Surf, we've got our own Facebook page, and there's YouTube clips and things.
So just search for that name.
Yeah. And we did, in fact, we just did a gig in Margate on Friday, and that was to sort of try and raise funds for Save Our NHS in Kent, which is a
very worthy cause.
Great organisation that sort of, obviously trying to do just that, save the NHS, get our local Labour candidate in, and and also try and turn around this this decision that the stroke unit at QEQM, Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Margate, yes, they've tried to close the stroke unit there and replace it in Ashford, which is over an hour's drive away.
Yeah, it's
which isn't great if you've just had a stroke.
No.
So, what I was trying to say is that Save Our NHS in Kent created a judicial review to question this decision, which has just happened, and the decision will may or not be revoked after Christmas. So we're waiting to get here the review. So anyway, our gig on Friday, was to kind of just help support that really. But we do quite a few gigs in the local area.
Yeah, well, look out for that, definitely.
And now I'm just managing my son's band, Vendettas.
Yes.
And there's my youngest son coming home from school now.
Oh, amazing. So before we wrap things up, I always like to ask if you've got any sort of sage words of wisdom, advice for people who would like to follow in your footsteps, as it were.
Oh my goodness. I hadn't even thought about this. That's difficult. It's all going to sound so sincere. That's the trouble. Stick to what you believe in. And I know that sounds really cheesy, but try and stay true to who you are. I think along the way, the times I've felt most uncomfortable is trying to fit in as a performer or as a presenter or an entertainer somewhere that just didn't feel right for me. And if you force it and it's not true to who you are, it just doesn't work somehow. And the way me and Simon have always enjoyed stuff, and it's true with the band or music or whatever you do, if you can do stuff where you feel like yourself and it's relaxed, it will be good. It will be funny, or it will be just appreciated because something natural happens. If you force it and try and put yourself, that thing of, what is it, square pegs and round holes or something like that, it just doesn't work. Yeah. So I think, and that's something I've kind of learned the hard way a little bit. I think in the early days, we didn't know what we were doing totally with TV and stuff, and had come out of, like I say, of this sort of alternative arts thing, and then found ourselves in sort of showbizy land a bit and didn't quite sometimes fit. And so there were some things that we found worked for us and some things that didn't. And I think in the end, as you go along, you find what you feel right and comfortable with. So do that. And before any show, probably a good idea to go to the toilet. Sage words indeed. Yeah. And on those words of wisdom, I'd say thank you, Trevor Neal, for joining us on the last episode of Series 1 of While I Was Resting. Thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. While I Was Resting. I hope you've enjoyed Series 1 of While I Was Resting. If you'd like to take part in Series 2, then drop me a line at thejace@mac.com or find While I Was Resting on Facebook. Thanks for listening.